Greg Andrick here, bringing you another Business Freedom Conversation post. So I'm bringing this one to you because this is probably going to be a preview of what we're going to have. So Europe slides into a recession, sort of, okay? Europe is having mixed results just like we are. And I'm going to have another post probably tomorrow that's going to line out why things are so difficult and isolated and so on. Europe is barely over the line for recession, so it's not like a huge drop, but Europe has had 2 quarters of negative total output, which is the standard definition that we use here in America as well as the definition for a recession. But there's a new thing that's cropped up that, quite frankly, I've never heard before, but we've also never had this before. And my last post, Get Ready for the Full Employment Recession, is the reason why we've never had this, and now bringing this up is that the experts are not willing to call it a recession when employment has gains. But you realize that these employment gains are artificial. I mean, both in Europe and here, we laid everybody and their brother off because of the pandemic. That is not exactly job growth, that's job return. So they're not willing to call it a recession, but yeah, you make your conclusions. So like us, they didn't have an employment decline. And here I'm going to show you the components because Europe may very well be the preview of what happens here. So take a look at the pieces. Okay, so Europe slides into a recession, sort of. They had their employment went up 0.6% in the first quarter. So let's just see what happens here in the second quarter. But what's happening over there is that their inflation is hurting consumer consumption. And so their consumers are buying less because basics like food is causing them to defer other purchases. The weakness in Germany and Ireland more than offset the growth in other economies at the start of the year. So Germany and Ireland had a decline, but France, Spain, Italy, etc. had an increase. But Germany is the main economy. It's inflation driven by a spike in energy costs and stubbornly high food prices. So they experienced some increases in energy costs, but their food is going up twice the rate of ours. Factory output in the country showed a steep drop in March. Okay? And because of its size, the German economy on its own can drag the Eurozone up or down. The Eurozone's slide into recession at the start of the year came in spite of growth in Spain, France, Italy, and Spain, like I already said. So the main difference between the Eurozone and the U.S. is consumer spending. Well, our consumers are sitting on $5 trillion that we pumped out to them, still have it. That's what they've had in their savings at the beginning of this year. So that's a big difference. Europe didn't do that. Americans are spending freely, unlike Europeans. In Europe, household spending fell in both the fourth quarter of last year and the first quarter of 2023, whereas we had an increase over here. Imports also fell sharply in both quarters, a sign that weakness in the Eurozone is affecting businesses in other parts of the world. And this is why I'm saying this could be a preview to here. Back in Europe, while food prices have continued to rise at a rapid rate, U.S. food prices have been rising half as quickly as the European equivalents so far this year. So Ireland experienced a 44.7% decline in factory output during March. So that extreme decline in March is what skewed the second quarter for the entire Eurozone, in addition to Germany. Now, why did this happen? So, I don't know if you remember the Obamacare bill, which is not a health care bill, it's a tax bill. There were 31 taxes in Obamacare. One of the taxes was an excise tax on medical devices. So almost all of the major U.S. medical device companies and the pharmaceutical companies are legally Irish companies because no excise tax, it was a 3% excise tax, and the corporate tax rate in Ireland is 12.5%. And because of that, in the last election here in Ireland, which occurred last November, or not here in Ireland, there in Ireland, even the progressives in Ireland recognize that the 12.5% tax rate has brought them prosperity because all these companies are based there and their money's moving through Ireland now. That led to a 17.3% annualized fall in the country's GDP during the first quarter. Look at that. That is enormous. But that's also skewed because they're benefiting where we want to raise taxes on corporations and do different things in corporations. They welcome them. And so they benefited, but look at that. Wow. In the U.S., a weakening of the job markets is required for a recession to be declared. And in the Eurozone, employment increased by 0.6%. So both in the U.S. and in Europe, there are increases in employment. But remember, those are manufactured increases because of the huge decline in employment caused by the business closures that were required for the pandemic. And really, this isn't job growth we're talking about here. This is job replacement where it's being rekindled because the pandemic is over. So there you have it. Those are the pieces that have caused this, and that may be a preview for us. Now to sum it up, you're seeing that Europe is in a recession, but it's a streaky recession. So Spain and France and Italy and some of the other countries are up. Ireland and Germany is down. Certain components are up. Certain components are down. That's just like us. You have to kind of pick your fights here. And that's why I'm talking about the 9 things you do to survive in a recession or a stagflation environment. And I'll have another post that's going to go over how the components are here in the U.S. because they're all over the place, just like they are in Europe. And that's what makes it tricky to manage your business. So here, Greg Andruck for the Business Freedom Conversation. We'll catch you on the next post.